All right, welcome to our first real episode of Table Talks. What you just saw didn't count live chat room, but yeah, today we're going to be talking about getting into the hobby in general. Talk a bit about starting with D&D and Savage Worlds. So joining me always, it's Corruption Points. How's it going, buddy?
Hi, it's round two. This is good.
Round two? No, what are you talking about? So yeah, I suppose we'll dive right into it. So what have you been up to this weekend?
This weekend, I played Savage Worlds for the first time with you.
Oh yeah.
I also played World of Darkness. I'm continuing that campaign where we're all playing ourselves. It's actually getting pretty hot and heavy there.
Yeah. How's that going? How do you level up?
Prepping for D&D next week.
How do you level up in that? By the way.
In World of Darkness, it's sort of like experience. You don't really get levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how much experience your character has is how experienced they are.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, how do you improve yourself as a person if you're role playing yourself?
So in the idea of improving ourselves as people, it's very much if I want to be smarter, if I want to learn more about werewolves, that might be what we're fighting. I have to go to a library and read a book about werewolves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, so that's pretty interesting. So we're going to be talking a bit about getting into the hobby. I mean, for those of you, I know some of you in the chat room are very, very experienced players, 3.5 and all that, and I saw some people that, they want to know what they do right after buying the red box, or they've never actually have played before. So you want to talk a bit about Dungeons & Dragons? Getting into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people, myself included, started Dungeons & Dragons with 3.5, which would be, that was the longest, for my generation of people, the longest running Dungeons & Dragons that there was, to acquire, to play, people that you knew were playing it of your age range. Older generations might be playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which were very, very hard, and so 3.5 was really the game to get into. And 3.5 is very, very good, and it really is one of my favorite systems of all time. But it's incredibly tough to get into if you've never played D&D, if you've never played a tabletop game, or if you have no idea what you're expecting when you start playing, which is a tough avenue to go down.
Yeah, I was gonna say, back in our day, what was there really to play? D&D was really the only mainstream one. Now, we're talking about, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Dark Heresy, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, World of Darkness. It just list goes on and on. So, yeah, though they have more options now, Dungeons & Dragons is still definitely the most popular pen and paper out there. So, do you want to talk about a little bit? So, group of buddies decide to, hey, we're going to start playing Dungeons & Dragons. What's the first thing you would suggest?
If you're just starting to play D&D, the best thing that you can do is pick up the starter box. The red box, as it is, which is a throwback to the old starter boxes. It's excellent. It's $20. It comes with literally everything you need to start playing it. It's got a 32-page campaign book. It's got character sheets. It's got little tokens that are like pogs for gauging your players and the enemies as well. It's really, really perfect if you want to start playing 4th edition.
Right, so you get a grid, the little pog things. You get a booklet too that gives you like an adventure, right? That you can probably finish up in a weekend or so.
Oh yeah, it's really a one-session thing. You could stretch it into 2 if you'd really like.
Okay, and it's pre-made characters, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yep. So they pick up the starter box. How much can they acquire this for?
This is $20, and it's fantastic. All of that stuff is just ready to go for the price of a couple of coffees.
Yeah, I can actually back this up. I actually purchased the red box myself. So what would the next thing be? So they have the red box. They rolled some dice. The next step.
So if you're in the starter box, you're done with that, you're ready to move on. There's a couple of options that you can really dive into. First being picking up the trifecta. Every Dungeons and Dragons edition, you need to buy 3 books if you're the DM. That would be the Player's Guide, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual, right?
All right, we have the Player's Handbook up here. We don't have the other two though. But Player's Handbook, is that something you would also suggest for the players to buy?
Yes, and when you're a player, this is the best part. All you need is this, which is fantastic. You only really need to understand your character and what they can do. The tough part about the player's handbook is that when you're making a game, we don't make this crap up. When you're making a game, when you're running a game, you very much have to understand every rule. You have to know all of the magic, you have to know every monster, you have to know all the player's rules. When you're a player, you really only have to understand your character and what you can do, which is fantastic for just getting the player's handbook, and fantastic in 4th edition. If you want to switch to the other thingy, the 4th edition comes with what might be the greatest asset to new players ever, which is the character builder through D&D Insider.
Right, and we have a screenshot that you got for the character builder. Now, something like that's really nice because I mean, turning all those pages, looking at all those numbers, it can be
It's tough,
daunting.
you know what I mean? Like when you're making a race, or you're picking a race, and you pick your class, but you can't pick your class before you pick your race, and you have no idea which is to benefit each other, or like what races go with what classes, and then you're switching between 40 pages of like book between all the things that you don't want just to try to understand what you wanted to play, right? So the character builder, I love this thing. It lets you make it gives you every book, it gives you all the resources, it gives you the arrays, it gives you suggestions, it tells you what you can start with, what races go with what classes, and then at the very end you can print it all out and it does all the math for you. When I was trying to get my players into 4th edition, I showed them this first because they really didn't want to get into all the math of 3.5, all the writing things down and erasing and things like that. And some people find that fun. I know I do. But it's tough. It's tough for a new player to get into this. So the idea was, if you print out everything, you have all these color-coded sheets, and all the math is done for you, really you only need to know most of your rules. And you're good to go. You can start playing right away. That thing is $10 a month for every book, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, talking if all this money is kind of overwhelming. I mean, you can split the $10. You got 4 or 5 buddies. It's like $2 each if you really want to.
Right, you know?
Yeah, so definitely D&D also has more resources than anything. You can't really. I don't think there really is like that for much else, is there? I actually don't know that, but
I couldn't tell you. I'm really just going on personal experience.
Right. Okay. So do you want to talk a bit about 3.5? A lot of people still regard as a better system, but a lot of people still swear by it and saying it's the much better game. I mean, do you want to talk a bit about that?
3.5 is perfect to a degree, right? It's very much there's so much supplement for it now. There's so many errated rules. There's everything that you can possibly want from it, and there's so many options. At its very core, right? It really does have its advantages and disadvantages. 3.5 is for the rules-heavy people that want to dig into real lore, that want to really have that high fantasy simulationist play. If you want, you can dumb it down to the low end if you'd like. But really, it's the amount of options and the amount of rules and details they give you in the system that's perfect. Also, at this point, there's a module for everything. If you wanted to play World of Warcraft 3.5, you can. If you want to play Call of Duty 3.5, you can. You know, if you want to play My Little Pony 3.5, I'm sure there is one, or 5. The problem behind 3.5 is that it's a lot to jump into if you're just starting. You know what I mean? It's really hard to read all those books and understand where you're supposed to start or what you're supposed to be doing at the very beginning. And Pathfinder does a great job of levying that. The Pathfinder is fantastic in that all of the stuff is contained in one giant book, and they really simplify a lot of the strange stuff. Pathfinder is sort of like the prestige class of 3.5, where you start off with this like general basic thing, and then you get a lot better. And apparently they have a starter box, so says Shadowhawk in the chat here.
Yeah, how do you actually go about purchasing 3.5 stuff nowadays? Just eBay, or are there people that
eBay? I would go through Amazon. It's they reprinted a whole bunch of the books, sort of like a refined edition, but It's really like upwards of $60 for an old edition. Just the best bet is just to find them used at a local game store or something like that, at the
Yeah,
very least.
I know my local game store. They have a few supplement books. They don't have the core rule book, but they have a couple of supplement books. So
Yeah, you can always just find PDFs. All the PDFs are on Drive Through RPG nowadays.
okay, so yeah. Do you want to talk about some warning signs about starting with D&D?
Yeah, sure.
Like
It's
you said, cost is one thing. How much is all the stuff that we mentioned
if
gonna cost you?
if you were to go out and buy all of the trifecta new actual books, actual hard copies of books, and also sign up for the Insider by yourself, it comes out to about $120, which is a little bit rough. It's cool because you only have to do it once, but
Yeah, and you know, if some people in our chat room might even be Warhammer players, and like $120, are you serious? That's it?
yeah, that's
So,
all.
you know, that's like 500 points to your army type thing. So, yeah, 120 is still quite a bit though, but definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. I think 4.0 is definitely a good place to start with everything you said. So, anything else to say about starting with D&D?
No, I really think, and I'll take this to my grave, that D&D is the game to start with. I know there's a lot of easier games. I know there's a lot of more narrativist games. But when it comes down to the grandfather of role playing games, D&D is it. You know, it's important to just have that high fantasy sword and board, magic casting, elves everywhere kind of game, and then really branch out. There's tons of awesome RPGs, but if you're gonna start with a game, I always recommend D&D first.
Right. Actually, a question: Can you get the D&D books on PDF from Wizards of the Coast, or do you always have to buy solid books from them?
I'm pretty sure you can get it on PDF. I'm not positive. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
Okay, just a thought because someone mentioned that they hate PDFs, and we were kind of talking about it, and I'll talk about it when I mentioned Savage Worlds. But PDFs are actually kind of convenient. I kind of like the idea. So yeah, moving on, we're going to be talking about Savage Worlds, which is a pen and paper RPG I was introduced to very recently, actually, like 2-3 weeks ago, by one of my friends. Very very interesting system. It's definitely the role player system. Like literally, I think all your checks are made on a 4+, and your stats are dice. So it's incredibly quick, it's incredibly easy, and it's incredibly roleplay friendly. So yeah, we actually had a first game just to roll some dice. What do you think of Savage Worlds?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was very streamlined, very simple. It had a lot to do with how the player plays it more than it is the rules behind the mechanics. You know, for example, I was playing more or less a fighter, and I had to take one of the feats I could take, or hindrances. I'm sorry, one of the hindrances I could take was Big Mouth, which was literally I had to give out the worst amount of information at the worst possible time because I just did not believe in lying, and it was really funny. There's no real like mechanic or rule saying I have to do this. It's really the thing I picked for myself. So the game very much adhered to that. It's very much how how you play when you pick what you pick.
Right. So, actually, while we're talking about hindrances and stuff, I know someone in chat room a while ago said, "Oh, we have to buy books. We can't make up all this stuff." Savage Worlds is honestly, if that's the kind of thing you want to do, it's perfect because also there's no setting. Like, yeah, I think it's Pinnacle who makes Savage World. They have their own setting campaign books. Like Dead Worlds is their big one, which is kind of a horror western kind of thing. But no, you can make up your own thing. There's actually a Savagepedia that gives you conversion charts for everything that people do, and we did a Warhammer Fantasy setting with it that worked very nicely. But yeah, it's literally also a game for very imaginative people. Again, I'll say it's the role player's game, not necessarily the tactician's game. And then I think also one of the cool parts about character creation, and you talked about being a big mouth, is when you make your character, you have hindrances which can allow you to get more skill points and more stat points if you take them. Some of them do have like stat like attributes or whatever. Like you'll get like -2 to charisma, or your character will be like missing a limb or something like that. But some of them are literally just roleplay mechanics. It just says this is how you're playing your character. And in our game, he met up with he kind of figured out who the ringleader was of the cult, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And he told him exactly what was going on. And the main villain of the campaign knew exactly what him and his party's plan was, because that was his hindrance. He had to do it. So, yeah, getting started with Savage Worlds. You can get the Savage World rulebook. I actually don't know how much the solid one costs, but if you just go to the Savage World websites, you can get the PDF for like $10. It's really, really nice. And then also you can just I'm not for pirating, but I'm just saying you can conveniently drop it into Skype and have your friends download it in about 5 minutes, and then they will also have it. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have a starter box, unfortunately, like D&D, and that's kind of the iffy part about it. So you'll have to buy your own dice. Chessex sells, what is it, a pound of dice for like $12, something like that. It's really, really cheap. And yeah, with this rule book, you can pretty much do whatever you want between that and the internet.
Now, Fox, would you recommend Savage Worlds for someone who's experienced with mechanically deep systems like 3.5?
I think they'd find themselves a little disappointed with this. In that case, because the fact of the matter is, like I said, it's a role player's game. If you want to like sit down, like look at a table, have your pieces or whatever, affect the fact that there's a rock by the dude's foot, the other person's like half in cover and he's got to like shoot it, he's got to measure the wind to shoot. No, definitely not. This literally, it's your dice are stats, or your stats are dice, and you need a 4 or higher to roll, and that tells if you complete it or not. So literally, you're rolling it. Do I see a 4? No. Okay, you failed. Do I see a 5, 6, 7, 8? Possibly all the way up to 12. Oh, I passed. So it's incredibly simple. So for the tactically minded and the hardcore, this is probably going to be a game you're going to skip, if I'm 100% honest. So that would be Savage World. Oh, Savage World also, other things to start. As far as like movement and stuff like that, the rule book is pretty cool because it gives you rules for playing on a grid, playing on just a standard table like you would Warhammer, and it also gives you guesstimation options. I mean, we're on Skype and I was a bit lazy with Vassal, so we kind of did the guesstimation narrative rule type thing, and that worked pretty well. I mean, Christian, that was your first time doing it, right? Doing anything like that?
Yes.
How was that?
Fun. I'm always been a strange opponent to this, because I believe that there's a certain energy that surrounds a table, and I believe there's a certain energy behind yelling at my friends and like pointing and making jokes and dropping dice on the floor. But for the unfortunate problem of I am here and Toxic's on the West Coast, it's tough to even begin to try and organize that kind of situation. So for that instance, right, it was actually pretty cool just to sit and talk over Skype and play the game. Although I think that, again, a more rules heavy or more less narrativist game would still falter over just Skype play.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing something like a D&D or Pathfinder over it. You need a Vassal to play it online, and I actually believe there is a D&D module for it. So we could probably do some investigating on that if you want to try and do that sometime.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and live stream our games from now on. We live streamed our last one, and the couple of people that joined in, they said it was a blast. They said it was hilarious, so definitely be looking to do that a bit more. So yeah, you can use any table. You can use your dining room table. You can also buy a grid. Like, how much do those that weird fabric where you can use dry erase marker?
Oh, the battle mats? I actually own one myself. I paid about $40 for it. That was because it was slightly off, like the squares aren't perfect squares or something like that. But depending on the size of what you're looking for, they go anywhere between $20 and $120.
Yeah,
$120 being the size of a kitchen room table.
Yeah, I actually think I paid $60 for mine back in the day, and it's pretty big. I think it's a 3x3, And what's cool is also you can flip it over, and it's what is it? The hexagon?
Yeah, it's hexagons on one side and squares on the other. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
It's not something you need. For example, actually, I'll say this: Dark Heresy. I had a really big time wrapping my mind around putting meters into those squares for a while because they're so strange and movement rates are also different. Whereas D&D, it's literally your movement speed is 8. That's 8 squares, and it makes it a lot easier that way. Yeah, I think it's better for specific games than others, but for fantasy games or games with static movement rates, I think battle mats are awesome. And miniatures are really, really fun.
Yeah. Actually, do you want to talk a bit about the D&D miniatures? How you acquire them?
I'm bad at this. I'm a bad miniature gatherer. You can go through the Wizards website. You can order off of any of the various miniature shops that sell them. What is it? Toad and Troll, I think, is one. But I am really bad at this because when I'm often playing D&D, I'll just use my Warhammer stuff. Countless enemies have been Necrons. Whatever I need them to be at the time, they are Necrons. I've seen people use little triangle, those translucent triangles they can put onto the mat. We actually, yeah, we use HeroClix for some of the D&D characters. The little beads, the colorful beads, I have blue ones around that you can use for minions and stuff. I don't think that you need miniatures, but they are awesome and they're really fun to use. If you get the actual ones that look like your actual character through Reaper minis and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a fun part of the hobby, making terrain and painting your miniatures and stuff like that. Definitely not required. I know D&D they do like booster packs or whatever that you can get of miniatures, and then they have don't they actually have something that accommodates the red box? They have like the actual like a miniature box of all the pre-made characters or something like that.
Yeah, they do, and it's very much the ones that you've when you play 3.5, right? You always hear about that one fighter or like the one monk because that's the archetype of everything that you could do. They then they sold those miniatures more or less, so he looks exactly like the guy on the cover. But you can buy those. I think they're like $30, and they're through the Wizards website.
Yep. Savage World also does their own minis. I think mostly it does it for they do it for what is it? The Deadlands, Dead Worlds or whatever. I have a Jackalope on there because I thought that was amazing. Some pretty cool things actually. I like them a lot. They remind me of kind of Malifaux. So I feel like if you play Malifaux and you want to use your minis, that would work very very well. So yeah, Savage Worlds. I give the thumbs up if your group is very roleplay heavy. I give it a thumbs up if you want to find a game to play with your friends online. I don't give it the thumbs up to veterans.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think it's great to start out. I think it's very, very light, very, very fun. But when it comes to digging in deep or having a long running campaign, things like that, I don't think it's the best system
Yeah,
with all the other options out.
definitely. So I'll talk about price for a second. So I got the rule book, which is all you really need. That's technically all we did. And oh, technically you'll need dice too. So what? That's $15.
Yeah, right. At the most.
Yeah. So definitely also price friendly too. It can be a poor role playing enthusiast RPG game. If you want to buy the mat and stuff like that for your friends, that's going to cost you a bit more. But ultimately, it's a lot cheaper than D&D as well. But that comes with the price of a more in-depth system.
Yeah, right. And you get what you pay for. There are billions and billions of options in D&D if you go through everything you could go through in just the trifecta. And in that, it's a one-time investment for a lifetime of fun.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Or until 5th edition comes out. Isn't there?
D&D next, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't there? Yeah. When's that actually supposed to be released?
Sometime this year, there'll probably be an announcement at Gen Con.
We're gonna do some coverage of that, aren't we?
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, what else? What else we got to say? So, what would other games like Dark Heresy and stuff like that? Would you say that's like a good second game, third game? Like, what were some other games if they wanted something maybe a bit more complex than D&D 4.0 or Savage Worlds?
More complex. If it depends on the kind of game you're looking for. Dark Heresy is very much a fun system, but it's a system of which you use to play around in the 40K universe. There's no. If I was going to pitch playing a role playing game, I don't think I would go straight to 40K, with the exception of people that know a little bit about it or are looking for that heavy, dread kind of future, very grimdark future that 40K is. If I was looking for a sci-fi game or a transhumanist game, things like that, you can go with Eclipse Phase, which is fantastic. You can do Shadowrun, which is more about that on the streets sort of thing. Still somewhat future and dystopian future. But in the end, if you're looking for a more rules heavy or mechanical fantasy game, there's always Pathfinder. There's a lot of narratives play like Burning Wheel, but I don't really recommend it, and things like that. It really is about what you're looking for and then what you want to do in it and how far you want to go with your characters, the character building, and the setting itself.
Yeah, and well, pretty much that's the correct answer, I guess, if there is a correct answer on such things. So what was I gonna say? I'm having a poo brain. Corruption points. Play me off. Distract them.
So, if there's one thing I want to recommend above everything is that you don't ever need to buy every book. You don't need every splat, and that's something that I think people are very intimidated by when you play D&D or you play Pathfinder and you go to their websites and you realize Paizo has a billion PDFs, or Wizards has a billion PDFs, and it's tough. Really, all you need to do is get the one book that you need for yourself, the one book that you need if you're playing the game, and then play the game. And I think that's very, very hard for some new players to wrap their mind around. All you need to do is be yourself and have fun with the game.
Right.
You don't need all the supplements. You can just do everything you can do with the core books.
Right, and the great advantage of something like this compared to video games is, when you all play World of Warcraft, you're doing one of two things. You're either killing guys in dungeons or killing guys in PvP. But you can sit down, you can decide what kind of campaign you're having, what kind of characters you have and stuff like that. It's a social activity, and it's all about who's having the most fun. Whoever has the most fun wins. Ha ha ha. All right, so anything else we need to talk about? What are we going to talk about next show, do you think?
I don't know. Let me throw this out to the crowd here. We can talk about if you're starting a game for the first time, how you would start being a GM for the first time.
Yep.
Or if you'd like, we can talk about more indie games, games that have different systems that you might not have heard about yet. I'm really interested in doing something like that.
Yep, because I know most of the questions on your blog that you get are GM based.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing.
So we might want to just get that one out of the way.
It looks like the people have spoken so far. I guess next week's show will be about being a first time GM, starting a game, and where you should begin.
Definitely. Yep. I'm down for that. So yeah, I guess that concludes the first episode of Table Talks. Christian. Do you have some time to stay around?
Yeah, I can hang around for like half an hour.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna shut down the recording real quick, and we'll be right back.